How nice was it to come out and feel the ball and feel like the level was back to what we expect from you, and it was almost perfect at times?
Yeah, no, definitely a much better match today. Last match, I just tried to erase it. That's the beauty of this tournament and having a team that, Taylor and Christian gave me the chance to stay in the tournament and be able to prove myself better today. So definitely happy to give my team the lead today.
Coco Gauff just dragged Team USA into the semifinals and then went full unfiltered mode in the press conference. No sugarcoating, no PR speak, just raw honesty about calling one of her recent performances among the worst of her career. She's out here admitting she wasn't positive, talking about mental battles, and basically giving everyone a masterclass in brutal self-awareness. The girl held nothing back. When was the last time you had to publicly own up to a terrible performance? Let us know below.
So Coco Gauff, yes, she infamously suffered one of her most bizarre losses, at least in recent memory, on Sunday against Jessica Butas-Monero, but the American did a masterful job of quieting their critics with a statement 6-3, 6-2 victory over Maria Sakkari at the United Cup in that quarterfinal tie against Greece.
Most athletes would rather eat glass than admit they just played one of the worst matches of their career. They'll blame the conditions, the schedule, their equipment, maybe throw in a vague injury reference. Anything to avoid saying, yeah, I was absolutely terrible out there. But Coco Gauff? She went straight for the jugular on herself. Yeah, I think for me it felt like one of my worst matches of my career, Gauff said after her redemption performance against Maria Sakkari. Not one of my tougher days or not my best showing. Nope, one of the worst, ever. That's the kind of honesty that makes PR teams break out in cold sweats.
How much has it helped you to play those mixed doubles throughout the week? Because obviously you get back straight on court a couple of hours later and it feels like, okay, I'm just going to get back to focusing on getting the win for the rest of the team bench.
Yeah, it definitely helped, I think, especially with the serve. Didn't serve well at all the last match, and then the mix I served really well, and today was tough at moments, but I thought it was pretty good. I held serve most of the match, and yeah, and that side is so tough with the sun, so I was just trying my best to manage that. But overall, I'm really happy with how I played, and hopefully I can keep getting better with each match.
She was talking about her disaster against Jessica Butas-Monero, where she got dismantled 1-6, 7-6, 0-6 by the world number 42. And when Gauff says it was one of her worst, she's not exaggerating. 14 double faults. Winning only 19% of second serve points. Getting broken 9 times out of 13 service games. Those aren't just bad numbers, those are, should I consider a career change, numbers. But here's what makes Gauff's post-match comments so fascinating. She didn't just acknowledge the performance was trash, she got specific about why it was trash and what she did differently to turn things around. No vague platitudes about finding her rhythm or taking it one point at a time. She straight up said she wasn't positive during that match and that her mentality was garbage. I don't think I was the most positive that match, so I just tried to stay positive regardless of what happened today, she explained after beating Sakkari 6-3, 6-2. It's almost funny how simple she makes it sound. Just be positive instead of negative. Revolutionary. Except when you're melting down in front of thousands of people and can't get a first serve in to save your life. Just being positive is about as easy as solving world hunger.
This match to be a real battle, and like Stefanos' brother said, Coco did not play her best tennis in the previous round and struggled a lot with her serve, hitting a total of 14 double faults. But I had a feeling Coco would up her level in this match, and she definitely did that. When Coco is playing at or near her best, I imagine, I put myself in her opponent's shoes, it would just be hell being her opponent because she's so athletic, she gets everything back, and she just does not give you much of anything at all. And you have to win the point 3-4 times compared to against other players because she's such a great athlete. And if you're not on or if you're not consistent with your game against her, you're going to struggle. And Maria learned this the hard way, especially in those first 5 games. Now, make no mistake, Coco played great tennis in these games. Her forehand was forehanding. She was doing a great job of actually hitting through it and not pulling back off of it, and her on-the-run shots were great. It felt like everything she touched really turned to gold. That said, Sakkari was sloppy. She complained to her team, her coach Tom Hill namely, about the balls flying on her, and it was her first match in the United Cup this year, played earlier in the day. Those matches against Osaka and Raducanu were played more in the nighttime. So I think that Coco, although she struggled and lost that match against Bouzas Monero, her having that match in the daytime and dealing with the conditions, I think for sure gave her a little bit more of an edge.
What's really interesting is how Gauff broke down the technical adjustments that came from the mental shift. She talked about going for bigger targets on her serve instead of playing scared. She acknowledged that against Bouzas Monero, she didn't make the right adjustments and let negativity take over. Against Sakkari, she did the opposite, trusted her ground strokes and served aggressively, knowing she could win points even if her serve wasn't perfect. I think just going for bigger targets, making her play, knowing that I off the ground can hang in there or beat almost everyone, Gauff said. There's that confidence again. She knows her baseline game is elite. She knows she can compete with anyone from the back of the court. The serve just needs to not be a complete liability, and suddenly she's dangerous. The statistics tell the story better than anything. Against Bouzas Monero, Gauff won 59% of first serve points and 19% of second serve points. Against Sakkari, those numbers jumped to 76% and 50% respectively. She faced one break point total against Sakkari after getting broken 9 times against Bouzas Monero. 1 break point in 9 service games versus 9 breaks in 13 games. That's not a small improvement. That's a complete transformation. But Gauff didn't stop at just winning her singles match. After giving USA the 1-0 lead, she had to turn around and play mixed doubles with Christian Harrison against Sakkari and Stefanos Tsitsipas. Because apparently crushing someone 6-3, 6-2 in singles isn't enough humiliation. You've got to come back and beat them in doubles too. And the doubles match was pressure-packed because Taylor Fritz lost to Tsitsipas 6-4, 7-5, which meant everything came down to the mixed doubles. Win and USA advances to the semifinals. Lose, and they're going home. No pressure at all for someone who just had the worst match of her career 2 days earlier. Gauff and Harrison won 4-6, 6-4, 10-8. They had to come from behind, win a tight second set, and then close out a nail-biting match tiebreak. The kind of situation where nerves can absolutely destroy you if you let them. But Gauff kept that positive mentality she talked about and delivered when it mattered most. The whole situation raises an interesting question about athlete honesty and vulnerability. We're so used to canned responses and carefully managed images that when someone actually tells the truth, it's almost shocking. Gauff could have easily downplayed the Bouzas Monero loss, could have made excuses about the conditions. She even mentioned the sun was on the other side during that match. Could have blamed fatigue or said she was working through some technical issues. Instead, she owned it completely, called it one of her worst matches, admitted she was negative, said she didn't make the right adjustments. That takes guts, especially when you're 21 years old and every tennis analyst in the world is already questioning whether your serve is a fatal flaw. Because let's be real, the serve has been a storyline around Gauff for years. It's the one part of her game that can completely betray her at the worst possible moments. The ground strokes are world-class. The movement is incredible. The return is devastating. The competitive fire is obvious. But that serve? It's like a temperamental sports car that either runs perfectly or breaks down completely with no in-between. What makes Gauff's comments so refreshing is that she doesn't try to pretend the serve isn't an issue. She talks about it openly, discusses what goes wrong mentally when things start falling apart, and explains her process for getting back on track. Most players would dance around the topic or give generic answers about working on things in practice. Gauff just tells you exactly what happened and what she's trying to fix. I think just mentality, she said, when asked what changed with her serve between matches. I think just going for bigger targets, making her play knowing that I off the ground can hang in there or beat almost everyone. So just adjusting. That phrase, just adjusting, is doing a lot of work there. Because what she's really describing is a complete mental reset after a performance that could have shattered her confidence. She's talking about trusting herself again after serving 14 double faults. She's describing how she consciously chose positivity over negativity in a high-pressure quarterfinal match. And then there's the broader context of what this all means for USA's United Cup campaign. They're now in the semifinals, where they'll face either Poland or Australia. If it's Poland, that means a potential showdown between Gauff and Iga Świątek, which would be must-watch television. If it's Australia, Gauff likely faces Maya Joint, which should be favorable on paper, but who knows after that Bouzas-Moniro disaster. What's fascinating is how Gauff's brutal honesty sets her up for the next match. She's already publicly acknowledged hitting rock bottom. She's talked about what went wrong and how she fixed it. If things go south in the semifinals, she can't hide from it. She's established that she's willing to call herself out and be accountable. But that honesty also takes some pressure off. When you've already admitted to playing one of your worst matches ever, what else is there to fear? You've already said the quiet part out loud. You've already owned your failures publicly. There's something liberating about that level of transparency. The mixed doubles win with Harrison also demonstrated something important about Gauff's character. She could have been tight and nervous after everything that happened, could have played scared in the match tiebreak, could have let the pressure of potentially sending her team home get to her. Instead, she performed when it mattered and helped close out a tough match against two quality opponents. That's the thing about Gauff that sometimes gets lost in all the serve discussions and technical analysis. The girl is a competitor. She's won 2 Grand Slam titles before turning 22. She's been handling pressure and scrutiny since she was a teenager. When she talks about staying positive and trusting herself, those aren't just empty words. She's proven she can actually do it when the stakes are highest. The contrast between the Bouzas-Moniro match and the Sakkari match also highlights how fine the margins are at the top level of tennis. We're talking about the same player, the same basic skill set, just with a completely different mentality and approach. In one match, Gauff looked like she had no business being on the same court. 2 days later, she looked like a Grand Slam champion crushing an overmatched opponent. That's what makes tennis so brutal and so fascinating. It's not just about physical skills or technical ability. The mental side can completely override everything else. You can have the best ground strokes in the world, but if your mind isn't right, you're getting bageled by players you should beat easily. Gauff's willingness to discuss this openly does something valuable for the sport too. Young players watching can see that even Grand Slam champions have terrible matches where nothing works. They can hear a top player talk honestly about struggling with negativity and having to consciously choose a better mindset. That's more valuable than any generic never give up platitude. Looking ahead to the semifinals, the big question is whether Gauff can maintain this positive mentality and improved serving when facing an even tougher opponent. Świątek, if that's who she faces, has beaten Gauff more times than Gauff probably wants to remember. That's a matchup where mental strength will be absolutely crucial. If Gauff shows up with the serve and attitude she had against Sakkari, she's got a legitimate shot at anyone. If the negativity creeps back in and the serve falls apart like it did against Bouzas-Moniro, she's going home early. The difference between those two outcomes is entirely mental, which Gauff herself has basically confirmed. The Australian Open is also looming, which adds another layer to all of this. The United Cup is important, but it's also preparation for the first Grand Slam of the year. Gauff will be evaluated based on how she performs in Melbourne, not Perth. But working through this serving crisis and mental battle now could actually be valuable experience heading into the bigger tournament. What makes Gauff's post-match comments so compelling is the absence of any attempt to manage her image or control the narrative. She could have said something vague and moved on. Instead, she gave everyone a detailed breakdown of what went wrong, what she changed, and why it worked. That's the kind of honesty that's rare in professional sports, where athletes are usually coached to say as little as possible without actually saying anything. So Gauff went from disaster to dominance while keeping it brutally real with everyone about her struggles. No excuses, no deflection, just honest talk about being negative and having to fix her mentality. That's the kind of transparency we need more of in sports. If you want more unfiltered tennis breakdowns, hit that like button and subscribe. Drop your semifinal predictions in the comments below.